When you're thinking about whether athletes need supplements, you've got to think about what you think a supplement is. And we include sports foods like drinks and bars and protein drinks that might be very useful in terms of just meeting nutritional needs and sometimes more practical than everyday foods. So certainly not every athlete needs to take supplements to get their best performance, but there are sometimes reasons why it might be practical to use specialised sports foods. And then there are a very small list of supplements that can enhance sports performance, and whether or not that's important to you would depend on what kind of athlete you are and what are all the things that you've got left to look at to try and improve your performance. Being your best as an athlete is a really hard job. It's so many layers of things that need to get put on top of each other. And even when you think of nutrition, getting the basic day-to-day eating right, making sure that you're getting your weight control, getting all the things that you need to be healthy and to recover and support your training sessions, that's so much more important than anything you can get in a bottle. And some of our coaches talk about supplements being the sprinkles on the icing on the cake, and that you've got to get your cake with your basic nutrition right. Then you need to learn a little bit about competition strategies of how to fuel and how to hydrate. And it's only when you get all that done that those supplements that might add another performance edge become really important. And if you haven't got a cake and haven't iced it, well then a packet of sprinkles is no use to you at all.
Can supplements help without having good nutrition and strategies?
It's one of the most expensive things you can do is waste your money buying supplements, because not only is it not going to be useful to you without that cake and the icing that good nutrition and getting your competition strategies in the right format provide to you, but sometimes people who take supplements think they're bulletproof and then they don't bother to go back and do the cake and the icing, which really makes the difference. So we, even when we work with elite athletes, make sure that we don't do anything with supplements until we've got the basics right and we've got a lot of practice around competition eating right. And only when that is in place do we say, right, now's the time to consider whether there's something else that could be useful.
What if I stick with natural products?
Everybody thinks that if something's natural and it's been put on a shelf and passed by some authority, it must be safe. And really that's the problem with a lot of the herbal products in particular, but just a lot of supplements in general. There's very little regulation of the industry compared to other industries we take for granted. And so just because you see something on a shelf and just because it says it's natural or organic or in some way chemical free, it doesn't have any health benefits just by that labelling. And so really we probably say that some herbal supplements are one of the risky kinds of products on the market, because sometimes the amount of information about what's in the product and the amount of variability that comes within herbal products is so great that you really can't be sure what you're buying.
What do I need to consider when assessing supplements?
When we talk to athletes about making decisions about supplements, we ask three questions. Is it safe? Is it effective? And is it legal? So the safety aspect's really important, because people just assume if you buy something in a bottle and it's available on the market, well then it must be safe. And in fact, because the supplement industry is so poorly regulated in comparison to some other industries, it is quite possible to buy things on the market, particularly when you're buying on the internet and getting things from overseas, and find a product that isn't safe. And there's been some terrible stories recently about people dying or having serious problems with their health as a result of using supplements. Then the next question is it effective? And then you need probably to get some really good advice on not only is the product got some science behind it, but is it right for your event, and do you have the knowledge of how you might use it to get those benefits? And then the last thing is it legal? So does this product contain any of the substances that are on the wider banned list? Now there's two problems there, because sometimes the supplements that are manufactured don't have all their ingredients labelled. And so the first problem is that people can read a label and not understand the ingredients and match them up to the wider banned list. But the worst problem is when the product is contaminated or contains ingredients that aren't listed on the label, and so then the athlete can be taking a supplement assuming, well, it's just a supplement, it must be safe. It says it's really good and that athletes use it, so I must be able to do it too. And then they find they've got an anti-doping rule violation because they've tested and they've found to have banned substances in their urine.
Where can I find good nutrition information or get advice?
Yeah, finding nutrition advice can be tricky for some people. Certainly there's a lot of good websites that you can look at. The AIS has lots of fact sheets. Sports Dietitians Australia are another group that have a good website. And there are plenty of other places that have some good sports nutrition information on offer. But I think if you can put some resources together and actually going to see a sports dietitian, that might be the best use of money ever, because then you can have all that information made very individualised and practical to you. And you'll be surprised how, not cheap, but if you consider the alternative in terms of buying supplements, the cost of a big jar of protein powder or a special little bottle of something or other could be even more expensive than having a session with a sports dietitian. And I can tell you that the value that you get when you're investing in long-term nutrition advice, particularly that's individualised to you, is going to be much better in the long run.
How can I minimise the risk if I still choose to use supplements?
Look, it's the million-dollar question in elite sport, particularly because you can get the best advice possible. You can look at a product, you can try and make some decisions about the company and how reputable they are and whether they have good manufacturing practices. You can read the label, you can talk to a sports nutrition or sports physician who can give you some more insight. But at the end of the day, it's the athlete's own decision.
Are things like multivitamins safe?
I guess we think of supplements into three categories, and they have different levels of safety or benefits, if you like. So we have the category we call sports foods, which contain just everyday nutrition, but in a practical form that might be useful in some situations in sport, particularly for before, during and after exercise when it's difficult to eat normal food. Then we have things we call the medical supplements, where we have particularly vitamins and other nutrients that are provided to people who have a diagnosed deficiency or a high risk of becoming deficient in a particular nutrient. And these can be useful, but again, they need to be put into the right context and provided with the advice of a sports physician or a sports dietitian. And then the last category are these special ingredients that claim to have a direct performance enhancing effect. Now, of the three levels of, I guess, risk or benefit, it's these guys up the end that are promising these performance benefits that are probably the most risky. When you're talking about the other two, when they're made by large companies that are in the food industry or the pharmaceutical industry, they're probably safer in terms of the ingredient list. But of course, if you don't use them in a way that's sensible, you can still run into problems.